Okay, so good morning, everybody. My name is Crystal Hall with the Iowa After School Alliance. I'm going to be joined by two guests today. Obviously, you know Vic Jarvis, which I don't know if Vic is on yet. He said something about having a call, so he may join us in just a moment. And I also have Tim Glenn with the Iowa Department of Education with us today as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Tim in just a minute. This is a super exciting presentation today. Everybody gets really pumped up and really geared up for data collection, but it is a vital component of our 21st century program. So we do want to make sure that we cover it well. Tim is going to speak to the APR. Vic and myself will address our local evaluation documents, as well as our annual survey documents. And we're going to have a lot of time for questions here too. So regarding those questions, you can obviously use the chat box. I will be monitoring that chat box during Tim and Vic's comments. Also, you can always unmute yourself at any time and interrupt with a question. We're pretty low key around here, as I hope you all know. So with that being said, I'm going to minimize my screen for just a moment here and give us a nice little introduction. So today's lesson is on data collection and entry, what to collect, how to collect it, and when to collect it. So again, we're discussing the APR, local evaluation, and annual statewide survey. So right out of the gate, people ask us why we collect so much data. And without sounding flip about this, it's because these are federal dollars. And of course, anytime you have taxpayer dollars connected to a fund, we want to know that the money is being spent well, being spent smartly, and it's being spent for the intention behind what it is to do. So we nationally, 21st Century has 1.2 billion with a B distributed across all 50 states. In Iowa, for fiscal year 21, we have 5.5 million, and that's actually down a little bit, and there's some reasons behind that. So perhaps Vic can update us on those reasons later. We want to know when we do this, when we collect this data, we're really looking to see how many people we serve. And the information that you see on your screen here is from our previous presentation of this back in the January-February timeframe. I know Vic has just actually done some updating of these numbers, but for today's purposes, you can kind of think that this is where we're at with our numbers in Iowa. So a lot of people want to know when my data is due. And on this particular screen, we tried to be as succinct as possible when it comes to that data. So APR, by far one of our, this is of course really very demographic heavy. It's a vital piece of information. It goes straight to the federal government. We have data entry windows that are open, and you can see the schedule here on the screen. So your summer 2019 data should have been entered in the spring of 2020. That should be done. However, if it's not, we'll talk about that when we get to that APR section. Right now, the window is open for your fall 2019 data. That's open until December 21st. So if you have not entered your data for fall of 2019, you really should be putting together a plan to get that done. The spring of 2020 data window will open December 22nd and remain open until February 15th. So again, be thinking about that. Now, some of you, again, I know you're almost immediately thinking, but we only had a month and a half of school. So, and then of course, COVID affected everything. We will have some information about that when we get to the APR section, but anything you can report into that system is better than nothing. Then looking forward, your summer 2020 data will be entered in the spring of 2021. Your fall 2020 data will be entered next year, and then again, spring also next year. So again, remember that we report a year behind. Local evaluation is our next data component that we're talking about today, and this is what you are working on with your local evaluators. This document can be found on the iowa21cclc.com website as a template. It's actually due November 30th, which is, coming up pretty quick. However, if you need an extension for that, it is really as simple as emailing Vic and asking for that extension. And some of you have already done that because, again, you're facing some obstacles or barriers to data. You need a little extra time to get that done. And as long as you have that communication with Vic, that is generally not a problem.
Let me just add, some people may need a second extension, and given the COVID, we will probably be giving out some of those for those who need it, so don't worry.
Absolutely. Very, very common to have an extension for local evaluation data. Now, after saying that, though, Vic actually shared with me this morning that he actually has some completed evaluations already as well. So if that's you, great job. The last little piece of data collection that I want to talk about here is our statewide survey. This was what I sent out on Friday the 13th, kind of an ominous day to send out a survey link, I know. That statewide survey data technically opens the 16th, although really it was open the minute I sent you the link. This is due January 15th, and you'll see a lot of very common similarities between the information we ask of you on that form and the APR and local evaluation. This is so that we can put together a stronger narrative to support the reports and documentation that's sent to the federal government. When I sent that email out on Friday, and if you did not get that, please know that that was sent to your 21st Century Site Director. I also included a PDF of that survey because it is quite lengthy, and it will take some time to log in and actually complete. If for some reason you did not get that, just drop me an email or put something in the chat, and I'll be happy to get that information to you. Again, feel free to use the chat for any questions that you might have, but then also if you have a verbal question that you want to ask, go ahead and unmute and grab that. So before I turn it over to Tim, I just want to give a brief introduction to what the APR is. As you all know, because you've worked in this field of education and youth development for however long that you have, we absolutely love acronyms. So some of you may be asking yourself, what does that APR even stand for? Well, APR stands for the Annual Performance Report, and this is a federal reporting system. It's required by the government. Our data is inputted 3 times a year, again, summer, fall, and spring. And you must create a login and update your password every 60 days. So what Tim is going to go over now is he is going to talk to you about how you create an account and maintain your password. He's going to talk a little bit, and I'll be happy to jump in and lend some assistance to some Excel spreadsheets that we've developed and can be found on our 21cclc.com website to help you in that data collection process. We'll talk about timing. He has different examples from slides. We'll also talk about technical assistance and how to print your screens. So before we dive into this, just want to double check with everybody to make sure that we're good so far. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so Tim, I'm going to mute myself, but I will gladly advance your slides for you. So you can give me a next or a head nod or something to that effect, and I'll gladly do that for you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Crystal, and good morning, everybody. I know that the entering data in the APR is a stressful situation for people. 21 APR has done a very good job of creating a system that's flows pretty smooth and it's pretty intuitive, and I don't think that a lot of people will have problems with once they get in the APR. Like Crystal said, I got some screenshots that we can look at. I know that for people who have never been in the site, it's going to be a little overwhelming, but please just believe me that it might look overwhelming, but the key to easier reporting in APR is to keep track of your data during the year. And Crystal has done a great job with the spreadsheets, and I think we're going to take a look at them. I have got some screenshots of the old spreadsheets in this PowerPoint, so I apologize for that. But were we going to go ahead and look at the site, Crystal? Because on the previous slide, there's a link.
Yes, I can certainly pull that up here. So give me 1 second.
It's not always easy to find a few minutes here and there to get data, but it's a lot easier than waiting until the end and trying to go through all your sheets and all your other forms to see what your data is. So
yeah, I should have had this up. That's my fault.
Oh, no, that's okay. Like I say, it's my fault for not, I visited the website this morning and it's like the new forms and they look great.
Okay,
and if you
so
can
what you're
keep
seeing,
up, oh, go ahead, Crystal.
yeah, what you're seeing on your screen is the Iowa21cclc.com website, and I'm on the grant info tab if anybody wants to follow along. So the templates for data collection can be found in this kind of second row where we have this templates indicated here. And, oh, I'm sorry, it's under evaluation resources. So if you scroll about, looks like maybe halfway down, you'll see that we have this APR data collection spreadsheet, spring, summer, and fall for you to be able to access.
Is it possible to just click on one? I wonder if hopefully it'll just pop it up.
Absolutely.
Crystal's so nice to us. You guys will find that she's very easy to work with, very knowledgeable.
All right. So here is the spring sheet, although again, they're similar across all of the reporting periods. It's just basically set up this way for your ease and your access.
Crystal,
so,
I don't see it on my screen.
Oh, let's try that. Are we good?
Here we go. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Tim, do you want to talk through this or would you like me to?
Did you set it up?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I'd point out to you is down here at the bottom, you have several tabs, and these all align with what you're going to see and do in the APR system. So on this first one, we have 21 APR Site 2 data. So they want to know what types of programming you're offering for your kids. And these are pre-populated categories as determined by the APR. And then you'll notice that in this column B, this how many times, there is a drop down that's already pre-populated with, again, the information that's in the APR. So if you do STEM programming at your site, they want to know how many times you do STEM programming. Do you not do it at all? Is it monthly, once per term, more than once per week, or once per month? And let me make this a little bit bigger here for people to see too. So my guess is that most of you are probably doing STEM, maybe a couple of times a week. So what you would do is you would say more than once a week. Column C then wants to know how often are you doing it. Maybe you do STEM 3 days a week. Column D is going to ask you how many hours per session, and maybe your average hours per session. So again, you can populate that with the number that you need to come up with there. Your average participants is the next column. So maybe we have, oh, that's actually a glitch. I just noticed that. There should be a breakdown of number of kids. So I'll make a note to correct this spreadsheet then. This particular column should say something like group of, I think it's less than 10, 11 to 20, or a larger group. They also want to know if this is a college or career readiness. Here it is. This is apparently just off a column here. So let's say that you serve 11 to 20 kids in that particular one. And then again, is it a college or career readiness issue? And that's what you're going to do for your types. They're also going to want to know the type of staff members that are connected to your program and whether they're paid or volunteer. They're going to want to know your student attendance and participation. So how many kindergartners, how many third, fifth graders, all the way up to 12th grade. Your attendance, your ethnicity, your gender, and then some population specifics. So how many ELL students are you serving? What is your free or reduced price lunch eligible rate? Do you have students with special needs? And then family members is one that always comes up. And Tim, I think you're going to reference in a little bit, you're going to reference kind of where you can find some of those user guides and FAQ guides and such. So we'll come back to that in just a moment. We want to know the number of people connected to your outcomes. So how many are proficient or not proficient? We're also looking at teacher reports. We're looking at grades. And that again, it aligns directly with how you move through the APR system. So we have a second tab if you have more than one site. And then here's a cumulative that can put together as well. So if you have a site at building A and a site at building B, this will combine for you then. And then it will also populate in these other tabs so you can immediately see your participation, your outcomes. And then here is a sheet that is not required for the APR. This is for your internal use only. If you need to document your student information here to make it easier for you to determine proficiency and growth and attendance and things like that, you are absolutely welcome to use this part. And you can see that we have an example here set up. So this is John Joseph Smith, who is our fictional student. He's a middle school student, and he's participating in a grant that was served by cohort 9, which is now no longer being active. Here's his student ID. He's been assigned gender 1 because he's a boy. You have his ethnicity, days that he attended was 13, and so on and so forth. If you have a different system, obviously you can use that different system. This is just something for sites that maybe don't have that information as easily accessible at their fingertips as some of your sites do. Tim?
Great, thank you, Crystal. These will help you throughout the year and make APR reporting a lot easier because you've also got the evaluations and other things that you need to be working on. So if possible to keep track of your data throughout the year, it's going to be a tremendous help.
Yeah.
So I help create the accounts and maintain passwords. And this will go through that, and we also show you some of the slides, and then we'll show you how to access the support. So you will receive, when new grantees come in and we register you in the 21 APR system, and you receive login information from 21 APR. If you lose your password, or if it doesn't, if you need access to the system and you're locked out, you can give me a call and I can reset your account, and that will cause 21 APR to send you new login credentials, or there is a link that we'll look at here that says forgot password. So this is the screen that you will get when you log in to 21apr.ed.gov/login. So there's a statement here that you need to read and accept every time before you log in. At least you have to accept it. And then after that, it'll take you to this login screen where you put your email and your password. And it will keep it. I know Google will save your password for you if you wanted to. But there's circled there on the screen the forgot password link. So that will also get you into have 21 APR send you a new password. I'm not sure how long that takes. I usually try and get, when I see a request for password reset, I try and get on that very quick because I know that you are in there and you're ready to do some work. So whichever way you feel comfortable, that's the way to get your password reset. So here is the slide that shows you the support. No, this is the home page. I'm sorry. So this will give you, just gives you an idea of the different places. Now this is mine, so yours might look a little different because I'm a state user and everybody else is a grantee user. So at the very last tile, there is a need help, and I just circled, I can't quite see it at the bottom, but it's it'll take you to the support page. So when you click on that, that will take you to their guides and FAQs. The guides and FAQs are, they've done a really, really good job of their support, I think. I think their guides and FAQs are really good. Can we go ahead and...
Yeah, sorry, Tim. I thought we had a slide for the guides, but apparently we don't. So.
There might be one after this. Can we?
Okay.
Can you go ahead and advance? Yeah, so here's...
It's not one to click for me.
Sorry. So the left-hand, the ribbon on the left-hand side, the menu there, the last one is support. And when you hit support, it'll take you to these. And the tile in the middle on the first one is the quick guide. So once you hit the quick guide, view the quick guide, it'll take you to here where it has 20 some different guides. And there should be an example right next to it. So it starts with getting started and it just follows you all the way through the APR. So it's kind of chronological based. So here's an example of one in the activities section. So this is just give you an idea of what you'll see. You'll go to your center name and then you'll click NPR or enter APR data, and then you'll click the activities. And then there's a second sheet. So this is the top half of the sheet, and then here is the second sheet. So it gives you a screenshot of what you're going to be seeing and what you're expected to enter. And if you notice, I know that's awful small on the screen, but this is how many times per term is STEM, just like Crystal showed us on the template. More than once a week, and those are drop-down entries that you can put in. So those are just, so if you keep track of those during the year, come APR time, it's going to be easier to have all your data right there and just transfer it into the 21 APR system. Next slide, please.
Yes, if I can get it to advance.
Okay, so data entry is per center. So that's where you add all your data. So if you have 2 centers, you will go to one, add all, fill it out, and then you go to the next. And when you're doing a center, it starts with activities, then staffing, then participation, and then the outcomes data. So it's just like the template that Crystal was showing us. Next slide, please. Okay, so when you want to enter data, these again are the tiles that I see. So have data to report, and that's what I would click. So then I just got an example of this Alan McKee. I just wanted to show the top half of, once you're clicked in, this is the first thing that you will see is your COVID-19 impact statement. So please fill that in. I know that there's going to be a lot of information, and a lot of people will probably be, I would think people in Washington will be looking at this answer fairly good, intensive, just to see where we're at, and the statement or the impact that COVID-19 did have on the program. Next slide, please. So then here is where this would have been later on that previous page. So just down the page. And I've clicked the grantee. So here is where the grantee enters the data. So this grantee has 3 different centers. So they will have 3 different sets of data to enter. So we start first, you will start with the inactive term checkboxes over to the left-hand side. If you run a program that does not have like a summer class, a summer term, then when you were reporting for your summer, you would click inactive. This is the fall reporting, so that's why the fall check boxes are colored. So maybe you only run a summer program, so then at the top one, so maybe the fall and spring would be inactive. But so that's just a way that you can designate your centers as having to enter their data. And then I could circle enter the APR data.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Thank you. So, and that will take you to the next screen. And this is just information on the grantee. You can update if needed. We put this in when we first get your information from your application. So if it does need, the contact needs updated or anything, you can go ahead and do that. And then you save the changes. And the next slide. So here's where you begin to enter your data. So I have circled the navigation ribbon. So you can go to activities, staffing, participation, and outcomes. And as we can see, that's the checkbox. We checked how many times per STEM, and it popped up that the text box to the right of it with the drop down arrow. And then, and if
Tim,
you don't do, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, we do have a question about the inactive part here. This is from Sarah. She says, we checked the box for fall even though we were active in the fall. So let me go back to that screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are only for inactive terms. So that gives, once, if you check that, that tells the system not to expect any data from that center. So your default, I mean, well, not default, but usually none of those boxes will be checked, because I think most programs do a summer, a fall, and a spring. But this is where, if you do have an inactive term, this is where you can indicate that. Does that answer your question? Okay, thanks, Sarah.
She says yes, that does make sense.
Okay, great.
Yes, and again, Tim, if I'm understanding correctly, in this situation, this blue box here, this kind of fall box, is highlighted because this is the reporting period that you are currently working in, correct?
Yes, so you are able to check that if you do have an inactive term, but you don't have to. It's the other ones were it looked like the summer and the spring ones were grayed out. So even if you clicked on them, you couldn't enter a check mark.
Thank you. Okay.
So this
now
is
I'll
just
get you back to your beginning.
Thank you. So this is back to this is our activities. And again, it has the academics, how many times STEM, and just like the spreadsheet had. So you go down the list, how many times per term is literacy, how many times a term for tutoring. If you do not tutor, then you do not check that box, and there will be no other data to enter for that element. Next slide, please. And this just goes on down the activities data entry. So you've got the enrichment, you got character, education, and college and career readiness. So this is everything that was on the spreadsheet template. And then at the very bottom there, the blue bar says you can continue to staffing. And you also have the chance below that to compare your activities data to other terms that you had. That might help you just to see if things dropped off, if things look like they did last year, and maybe you're expecting a big increase, and just to see if you do see that increase in participation, maybe. So that could be a good thing to help you understand some of your local data.
In a non-COVID world, I think that these were pretty nice to have, because it's also kind of a way just to make sure that you have a check and balance system for making sure that your data entry is entered correctly. So if you notice there's a big discrepancy in your violence prevention, yet you know that it was about the same from last year, it may just be an indicator for you to go back and check that particular section. Maybe you got a little click happy or something like that, and you can make that correction then before submitting.
Okay, and then here is a picture of the older data collection template, but as you can see, the new one is it's more user-friendly. It looks better, and it'll be a great help in getting your data together. So after the activities, you go to staffing, and then here is the same, it's the same type of thing. If you have administrators, you will check that box, and it will pop up another box saying how many. So same thing with college students. As you see community members, there's a little question mark in a circle. So that will give you some extra information on who is a community member. So this staffing will get you all your staff. And again, you can collect it on that newer template. And then it'll be all ready to go come your reporting time. So we, 21st Century identifies their students as regular attendees if they attend over 30 days. And then there is 3 designations in the regular attendees. One, if they are at your center for 30 to 59 days, another if they're 60 to 89, and another 90 plus days. And the reason they break that down is because we're trying to see if the kids that have more attendance do better. So this is I think it's a good way to look at some of your kids. So we have assessment scores, but this is with COVID. We're just going to, this year is going to be a little different. I know Vic was going to talk a little bit about what kind of assessments we'll be using for this year, and we'll talk about those later when we get to the outcomes, I believe. But we're looking at changes. The reason they do that is because we look back in the good old days before COVID, we would look at the state assessment score for the prior year, look at the state assessment score for this year, and see if there's any change and report the change in proficiency. So that is the idea behind getting this student level data.
All right. Vic, do you have anything that you want to say now, or Tim, are you ready for me to advance the slide?
You can advance the slide.
I think that in the future, we're not going to be messing with proficiency, pretty much just growth.
Okay.
And we're still going to use assessment data, but it'll be a little different focus.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about that a little more when we get to the outcomes. So next after your staffing would be your participation data. And again, it's the same format. If you have pre-kindergartners, you select that and it gives you a box to put the total in. And then if you, and then it just goes, this is the same web page, it's just below it. So here we go, our student attendance, and here we're asking about the regular attendees, how many for over 30 days. And then they also ask race and ethnicity. So can you see the student attendance? We had just a little bit to the right, and the gold section that says almost and 0 out of 2. I put 2 kids up in the earlier.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I put 2 kids in PK just to get that data entry box to pop up. So that almost and then 0 out of 2 is telling me that I reported 2 kids, but here I haven't reported any of those 2 kids. So this will keep, and it'll do the same thing with the race and ethnicity. It's just the number of kids you report. It just goes from student attendance to race and ethnicity. And I think there's another one, Crystal, if you can. Yeah, so there's other things. So that will keep your count valid. So that'll make sure that you are reporting the population specifics, like limited English proficiency. Well, those won't necessarily, but the gender, because all students will have gender, so they'll all be expected to be reported. So if you have 0 out of 2, or if you have 21 out of 25, then you know there's still 3 kids that is missing in your data entry. The pre-K, the population specifics, not every child, not every student is limited English proficiency, so it will not make you, it won't make that add up to the total, if that makes sense. And I apologize if it didn't. So then below that, you have another continue to the outcomes navigation. And again, below that, you have the chance to compare your data with different terms. And there is the old template that's been replaced by the newer, more improved. And that's the same thing with the participation data. So that has the regular students. So this is a state assessment outcomes. And like I said, it's just going to be different for our next year and probably the year after, because we won't have the scores that we typically have for assessment. But like Vic says, we're changing on that. So can you go ahead and advance the next? And this shows the bottom portion of the state assessment. And this will show you give you a little more information on the regular attendees. And next slide. And here's the data collection for the outcomes. And that's the old template. So we can go. Okay. I know back on one of the very earlier slides we took, slide 12. Are you able to access that, Crystal?
Slide 12. Let me grab that.
So here is the outcome section. Here is where we measure the growth. So before we had the state assessments test, we really don't have those now. We are able to report on grades and teacher surveys as well. Vic, do you have any words of wisdom for the reporting?
Well, look at it this way.
Outcome growth.
There's 3 ways that people can be successful. If you don't have a state assessment, then the next thing I would look at is student grades. Did the students go up a grade? That shows some growth, shows they were successful. And if you don't have that, maybe just have teacher reporting on the students. Any of those three will work, because we've got to get some data to Washington, to Congress, that says, hey, we're making a difference for our kids in Iowa. So we're as flexible as we can be.
And as everybody knows who's worked with Vic and Crystal, they are so easy to get along with and very helpful and very knowledgeable about this system and this program. So any kind of questions you have, I know that they'll be more than happy to answer your questions. So the very last thing that I'm going to talk about is to print records. Now I get this is the shot of the quick guide number 18 to show you how printable reports. So if you get in the system, it's like, how did I do that? Just go to the quick guides and it'll show you that this is a printable report. So it's really easy. You just print, you just hit the button, it says print state reports, and then it'll give you a readout. And then you can select terms as well to look at. So it's a good way to just look at your data, especially to look at maybe last year's compared to this year's. And I think for me, I think that is it.
Yeah. So thank you, Tim. What questions do we have? Jenny has a general question. Can a grantee have more than one login to the APR? Can two people from an organization have access?
Yes, they can. Just send me an email of the other person that needs access, and I'll just need their name and email. And you can email me at tim.glenn@iowa.gov.
Mm-hmm. And we have Tim's contact information on the last slide as well. So that'll be there. So Jenny says, thank you for that.
Thank you.
I would suggest this though. If more than one person from your organization has access to the system, you just may want to have some internal conversations and controls about who is actually doing the data entry. Because again, if somebody put something in and you had already started it, it could just lead to a lot of headache and heartache is all I would say. So
that might be a good idea, maybe to have, if somebody do the summer program and somebody, you know, if you're swapping out, somebody do the fall, but don't try to have two people doing the same reporting.
Back when I was a grantee, one thing that I would do is I would compile the data spreadsheets, and then I would take them to my site directors to confirm that data before I put it into the APR. Again, it was just another way of kind of doing those internal checks and balances so that I didn't perhaps assume something or misread an email or something to that effect. So we found that was a pretty easy way to strategize and make sure that the data that we were submitting was as accurate as possible.
Listen, I want to put everybody's mind at ease, because when you look at the help section and there's like 20 guides on there, you don't have to read all those guides. They're there as a backup in case you get flustered in a certain section. Let me tell you, this system, this is a second iteration, and we've worked really hard to make it more user-friendly. And the first time, it might be a little bit challenging, but if you've already got that template and you've got your data, it should go pretty smooth section by section as you're putting your data in. And even though we're going through a pandemic, if you need help, you can contact Tim or I, and we'll do a Zoom with you, and you can share your screen and we'll guide you through it. So we don't want you to get, too, you've got enough stuff with the pandemic and everything putting stress on you. This system should not.
Right. And I would throw myself out there as well as a person who would be willing to help with that. I also would just make a general recommendation that while you maybe don't want to have your direct service staff watch this recording or whatever, because I mean, this is kind of that higher level type of stuff, you may want to take bits and pieces of this and turn it into a staff training so that your direct service staff understand why they're asked to track the pieces of data that they're asked to track. It's just a nice way of being able to build that internal buy-in in your team as to why these things are important. So I would also make the suggestion to you that this could be a really nice topic kind of from a 30,000 viewpoint for your parents. You know, we track this data because this funding is important. It allows us to do X, Y, and Z with your kids, you know, those types of things. So this is why we are tracking this type of data. And if you need more information about that, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, let me give you a little background on this. A few years ago, when they started this system, it was because Congress wanted some timely reports, and the old system only did it once a year. And so they divided it up and they pull that data at Department of Ed, and they have it ready to show Congress. Even if Congress only asks for it once a year, they're ready. And that's what's been keeping our program going. It's been on a chopping block a couple of times. And when Congress sees this data, they say overwhelming response, bipartisan, they're voting to keep this program going because of our data. So it's really important.
Absolutely. So we have a question in the chat from Chris. He says, the pandemic is having a significant impact on programming and attendance, among other things, which will skew that data. Is there a place to note that in the course of data reporting? And the answer is yes, Chris. So right away on that very first entry screen that Tim showed you, there's kind of that paragraph box where you can make your COVID pandemic statement. And then we'll actually address further information connected to COVID within this local evaluation piece. So let us go through this part. And then if you have more questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So I am going to go into this local evaluation, so I'll kind of give it an entryway, and then Vic, please hop in and interrupt if you have other pieces of information you want to share.
Okay.
So your local evaluation is the next piece of data that we're going to be talking about. If Chris's question gets answered, okay. Gabby's having some trouble with her audio today. Gabby, just so you know, this is going to be recorded, and I will also download the chat file and post that onto our website. So hopefully you can grab that. If you can't, don't hesitate to reach out to me. So thank you. Local evaluation. So a lot of the data in your local evaluation document is the same or similar to what is inputted in the APR. So the nice thing is when you're doing one, it dovetails with the other very nicely. That template for your local evaluation document is found on our website, again, under Grant Info Templates. And this is completed by you or your site administration and your local evaluator. Every site should have a local evaluator. It's turned in annually November 30th, but as we said at the beginning of this presentation, if you need an extension, it is literally as simple as emailing Vic and requesting that extension. Or if you need a second extension, it is just that simple to email and ask for that second extension. As we've said numerous times in here, you know, Vic, the Iowa After School Alliance, the Iowa Department of Education, we all want you to be successful. So if giving you an extra 30 days or whatever is going to make that successful for you, that's what we'll do to make that happen. If for some reason you don't have a local evaluator, you know, perhaps somebody retires or somebody's not willing to do that work anymore, we do have a list of evaluators who are willing to do additional site work. That can be found on the iowa21cclc.com website under that grant info page, and it's kind of towards the bottom of the page. Perhaps if we have some time at the end of this, I'll pop that screen up so that people can see. So what does a quality evaluation look like? So Vic, I'm going to let you take it over using the information on the slides here and adding anything else that you'd like at this point.
Okay. Well, quality evaluation should reflect what the program is actually doing. We make it pretty easy because we've got a template, and step by step, the local evaluator knows what data to collect. And so we ask for, the GEPRA measures, and there's 14 of them. And in the future, we're cutting that down to just 5. And that's going to take 2 years, but it's happening. And we also, what's very important is anecdotal evidence, a story about a kid whose life was impacted by this program. That's huge. And also pictures, but you have to show the kids engaged in activities. Now, don't line them up in front of the building and take their picture. We can't use that kind of picture. Show them making things, crafts, show them out on a playground, going on a field trip, a lot of smiles. Those are the kind of pictures that we can use. And then you have local goals. Make sure they're reasonable and measurable. You don't need a whole lot. 5's plenty. And what I recommend, we're dealing with at-risk kids. So I recommend goals of greater than 50% of regular attendees. Don't try to, reinvent No Child Left Behind and say, oh, 100% of our kids will, make this goal, and then it doesn't happen. And, we have to use your local evaluation now for program renewability. So don't shoot yourself in the foot. You make your goals reasonable. So when, if you have it at 50% and you made 52% this year, it's a low year, you still made your goal. Maybe next year you'll get up to 80, and that's great. And we've got some duplicates on there. How about the next slide?
Yeah, I guess I think we left those on there just simply because to specifically address issues with COVID right now, the anecdotal evidence is going to be vitally important to your local evaluation. And then if you are able to capture pictures, and we probably should have put screenshots behind this because I know several people were doing some virtual engagement with kids. Those would be additional suggestions for your local evaluation. Let me move here. Okay.
So you want to talk about your program attendance. That's very, very important. And in fact, coming up with the new measures, we're not going to limit counting a kid till after they've attended 30 days. We're going to count them if they attended 1 day. Think about that. In middle school and high school, some of these kids, they attend regularly, but maybe they only do 20 days because they might be in band or some other extracurricular activity. Now we're going to be able to count them in the APR, so that's going to be nice for us in the future. But we are so focused on attendance. In fact, when you turn in your claim sheet, you have attendance numbers on there every quarter. So things that are also important to ask staff, why are kids coming? Do they enjoy the activities? And another thing is they're making new friends in the program. And another reason kids come is when there's a full meal. Those are some big reasons why I think kids attend. And, they love going on the field trips. And, there might be another 10 kids going on a field trip. All of those things are long-term helping these kids get reconnected to school and turning their lives around for the better.
All right. So before we move on to the statewide annual survey, does anybody have questions about the local evaluation?
Hi, this is Kate with Boys and Girls Club. I have a few questions. So Vic, did I understand that you said that even if a student attends one day, are we counting them as a regular participant?
No.
Or are we still looking
Right now, you have to do 30 days.
30 days? Okay.
In the future, and it's going to take us 2 years to get there, we'll be counting every kid.
Okay.
So we're going to have more trainings on how this is going to look as we move forward. I just wanted to give you a little bird's eye view of what's coming down the road. I frequently do that. So right now we're at the 30 days.
And again, Kate, remember for your local evaluation, you're reporting on the summer of 2019,
Right.
the 2019 fall, and 2020 spring. So you're always kind of that year behind. So the 30 days apply to that time frame.
Yep.
So yeah, thank you for your question. Anybody else have questions?
I have one other actually.
Okay.
Please.
On one of the outcomes, it talks about, oh gosh, not progress. I can't remember the exact term that's made. But it talks about elementary students making progress in English. And then it talks about high school and middle school making progress in math. Can you explain the reason for that difference and why we're not looking at both for both levels?
It's probably because they wanted to limit the number of measures to 14. They're more interested in reading and literacy for the younger kids. And they felt with, kids in high school getting ready to go into careers, they really needed to beef up their math skills.
Okay. Thank you, Kate. Does anybody else have questions?
I have a quick question on the local evaluation form.
Yeah.
I remember reading in one of the PowerPoints that it said if you don't meet the attendance threshold by 70% your first year, you'll lose funding. By 80% second year, lose funding. As I'm going through and writing the parts of the local objectives and doing that with the specific verbiage stated, met the stated objective, did not meet the objective but made progress, did not meet and no progress was made, unable to measure unable to measure the objective. I was wondering if the attendance, that 70–80% is also applied here, or is that attendance only and we strictly follow the percentages that we stated in our local outcomes in order to meet the stated did not meet but made progress, did not meet no progress, and unable to measure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that shows you how important attendance is. And, this is coming from the feds. They want to keep a track of our kids, getting a program, how many of them are attending regularly. So we've embedded it into the local evaluation so that there's no surprise if you're monitoring your attendance and then when I have to look at attendance and maybe make a reduction. However, don't worry about it this year because of the pandemic. That's not going to be happening. So, we have to monitor attendance closely. And I can tell you that before I came on board, the attendance numbers, they wanted you to get 90%. And some states go 100% of what you put in your application. But we're dealing with at-risk kids with chronic attendance, and 80% I think is a reasonable goal to hit at year 3.
Okay. So I guess I need to further explain my question. So
Okay.
One of our local objectives is attendance, and we state that we will have 85% average daily attendance in our local objectives. So in order to assign the specific verbiage to that, if I get 70% of our goal do I count it as met or not met but made progress?
Well, if you set it locally at 85, that's your criteria. You may want to adjust that so that it aligns with what we require. If you get more, then that's good.
Yeah. Sarah, I remember being in a very similar situation that our local objectives were higher than the required objectives for the grant because we all want to do the best, right? You know, so, but I do think that there is some value in adjusting your local objectives to align with the grant, the overall grant objectives. Because then again, when you hit that 70% threshold, then you can identify that that goal is met. If you leave your goal the way it is, you'll have to indicate that you're making progress towards that goal.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
I want your local evaluation, because you also have to publicly post it. I want you to be as successful as possible. And part of that is to have reasonable data measures.
Absolutely. That local evaluation, it's more than just a document that you can send to Vic at the state as well. Really, that is a tool that you can use to really tell your story, which helps build up your community partners and, of course, lends itself to your sustainability model. So consider that as well. Any other questions regarding local evaluation? Okay, so we're in the home stretch here, folks. We're going to talk next about the statewide annual survey. So again, this link was sent out last Friday to your site director. It's a SurveyMonkey link that we use to collect some additional data or information that helps Vic to compile the information needed to send to the federal government for his reporting period. We also include that PDF because, again, it's a fairly lengthy document. It allows you to maybe do some penciling out so you can do some of that planning. And it's, again, very similar data that's collected in the APR and local evaluation tool, but it also asks for, and you'll see the bullets on the screen here. So some real basic site and cohort information. We want to know if you're charging fees. I think you've probably heard us say a million times that charging fees is not a best practice, but if that's a situation that you and your organization are in, we want to know about that because there are some additional steps that need to take place then to adhere to guidance. We want to know what your transportation, your meal, your other type of program supports include. What are you doing for staff professional development? Some of your program logistics. We want to know about youth growth past academics because we know that developing the whole child is also part of the 21st century program goals. We want kids to be able to read well and to be able to be successful in math, but we also want to know that they have some experiences with being involved in their community, or they're given some leadership opportunities or service learning opportunities and things of that nature. We want to know about your communication plan. How are you communicating with parents? And then finally, we're going to ask for links to your social media and your website. So here are some other reminders for that data collection. Teacher surveys are a required component of the APR system. There are 2 questions on those surveys that are entered into the APR. And again, that teacher survey document can be found at the website here under grant info. It's important that you get information for all of the kids in your program from those teachers. And because of that, many of you serve a really high number of kids, which is fantastic. So you'll want to make sure that you're giving your teachers plenty of time to get that done. Also, as a reminder, you can do this kind of old school pen and paper. You can also turn this into an online survey, whichever is going to benefit you so that you can get the data information needed for that. And quick reminder for this is actually required by federal statute, and we have the statute number listed here if anybody asks you, or if a teacher says, why do I have to do this? You can explain that it's part of statute for that purpose. Professional development is also something that we'll want to collect from you. This is actually currently a part of your financial claims, but we'll also ask for a summary of the professional development that you have provided for your staff throughout the year. And what this does is it helps the Iowa After School Alliance to kind of get a snapshot of where our professional development needs are and how we can better address those professional development needs. If we're seeing that perhaps, SDL is an area where there might be some need, then we can start to tailor some of our best practice webinars or workshops at Impact Conference or Spring or Fall Institutes to address those needs. Because again, that just benefits everyone through programming. And then finally, community partnerships. And for those of you who were a part of this, your community partnership and professional development summary, that was due back in September. That will be an annual collection. The community partnership template is also required by statute, so it's vital that that information is collected and shared with us. The template is also on that iowa21cclc.com page. And this is a way that you can just simply record all of the partners that worked with your kids and your programs throughout the year. I would encourage you to think about, who those partners are on a more consistent basis other than annually. And I want to give you a quick example of that. We had a site that turned in a community partnership form that only had 7 community partners on it. I found that to be a little bit strange because this is a really active 21st Century Communities Learning Center site, and I found it a little bit odd that they only had that many partners. And when we talked about what does a community partner mean or look like in an individual phone call with them, they were like, oh gosh, we have so many more, and then submitted a sheet to me that had probably 25 different entries on it. So when you're thinking about your partners, think about the people that provide those services to you that are not a vendor relationship. We're not interested in the vendor component, but we're really looking for that value added to the program. So that could be the group that comes in and does homework help with the kids once a week. It could be the art enrichment program that comes in and provides those services to your youth. It could be a church that brings in, food for your families once a month or something like that. Vic, do you want to talk a little bit about these items A and B here?
Sure. It says on here in the statute that the state will create this list, and basically for us to create it, we got to get it from somewhere. And you guys are the repository of pre-screened external organizations. Those are your community partners. And every year we have to ask you, update us with your list of partners. And Iowa is #1 in the country. We have almost, we're around 700, I think, this year. The next one that has partners is Texas, has about 120. And look how much bigger Texas is than Iowa. Our partners enable us to serve thousands more kids than we could do without federal funds alone. Plus, they help us provide a lot of enrichment activities that would never happen without these partners. Simple thing like going to the fire department. They bring the fire engine. Kids love to see the fire trucks. We've got a lot of variety of different places and things that kids do. In Council Bluffs, the older kids can learn how to fly. One of their partners is, at the airport. So it takes all kinds of forms, and it makes our programs much better for the kids.
The other very nice thing about this community partnership list that's submitted is every site submits their individual list to me, and then I take it and compile it into one fairly large spreadsheet. So that's sent to Vic for his documentation, but then we also put that on our 21cclc.com website. And while the master list is on there now for the 2019-2020 school year, our website designer is actually slowly making that a searchable document as well. So if you are in Cedar Rapids and you're looking for a partner to provide art programming, you can, you'll be able to search that field and find out what other community partners provide that service. And if they're limited to a geographic area or if they're expanding to your area or statewide. So it's kind of a nice little feature that we provide too. So with that being said, this concludes our presentation today. I want to thank everybody for hanging with us. I know we went a little bit over here our hour time frame, but again, it's important information, especially for any of you who are doing that data entry. You'll want to be sure that you can access that information whenever you want. Here's our contact information here. And again, this recording, the PowerPoint presentation, and the chat log will be uploaded to the 21cclc.com website. I'll send an email out to everybody so that you'll know where to find that, and you'll be able to access this at any time. So with that being said, I'm going to stop share, and I'm just going to ask if anybody has any further questions for today.
I do have one final question as I'm listening and going through our local evaluation and just double checking some things. The first GIPRA measures and improved in mathematics, is this a duplicated or unduplicated number? So for example, it says first column, number of regular student attendees needing improvement. We say we have 20 students we invite, they all still need improvement, but 15 of them in the second column improved. So are we counting them as duplicated, as in, yes, all 20 of them still need to improve because they're not meeting their benchmarks yet, but 15 of them did improve? Or are we breaking it down in 15.5 as unduplicated?
I think that what you want to do is you've got 20 kids that need to improve and 15 did. You'll want to report that, but it may end up looking like it's a duplication. It's just the way the form was set up. And that's why we're changing it, because there were some gray areas. There's quite a few of them in there with the 14 measures. So, you know, do the best you can with your understanding of that form, and we should be okay.
Sarah, I'm sorry, was that in the local evaluation form or the APR? I didn't catch which form you referenced.
In the local evaluation for the GIPRA.
Okay.
Well, that's just copied.
So, I'm sorry, Vic, will you say that again?
I said that's just, you know, a copy of the GEPRA itself. So let me try to bring up that form.
Because maybe we had all 20 of our students who did improve, but all 20 of them still need more improvement. So do we count them as 20 and 20, or is it 0 and 20? Because I don't want it to seem that we had 40 kids if we only had 20. I just want to make sure we're accurately reporting for the GIPRA.
Yeah, Vic, I've given you co-host access here so you can share your screen when you get that form brought up. I think I'm trying to remember how this was handled. I think the difference here is proficiency versus growth. But let's have Vic pull up the screen here real quick, just so I just don't want to say something that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to find it, Vic?
Yep. Let me make it bigger. Okay, there it is. Now, let me, tell me again, what is that, number 5?
I'm specifically looking at number 1, but at GIPRA 1, but it does flow out into GIPRA 4 with the reading. So with the 1, it's math, but we're going to have we have the same question going on into the reading data as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so there's 3 things. If you got 20 students that need to improve, 15 improved, and then you put in the percentage.
So if I have 20 students in my program and all 20 still need to improve and 15 of them did improve, I put 20 in the first column and 15 in the second column.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So it is a duplicated count. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, where I brought in the proficiency component, is that's where people get a little bit hung up sometimes too, is because to move a student towards proficiency can be a huge undertaking, especially the students that tend to be served by 21st century funds. So we're more interested in that improvement because again, of your 20 kids, you may have only had 2 that moved towards proficiency, and that number doesn't speak very favorably for you because we know that you had 13 others that showed improvement. Does that make sense, Sarah?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great question. Thank you for asking that. So, anybody else have
challenge.
questions?
Can't always answer things off the top of my head, sorry.
No, we got to look at it. It's difficult.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any other questions before we wrap up for the day? Okay, well, I hope you found this informative. I hope we answered some of the questions that you might have had. I hope that you're perhaps a little bit more comfortable or familiar with the APR, the local evaluation, and the statewide survey. Again, Vic and Tim are your guys at the department. They'll help you out however, whenever, wherever they can. If I can be of assistance to you as well, do not hesitate to reach out to us. And again, this is going to be posted on our website, so you can always refer back and access this at any time. So with that being said, I'm going to thank you again for your attendance. I'm going to stop recording.